October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we are sitting with people in our community, sharing their journeys through breast cancer in hopes of bringing more openness, more space, and more freedom to just talk about breast cancer and letting people out there know they're not alone. And also for those of us who are teachers, caregivers, family members, bringing us some insight and more understanding so we can be even better, loving, and effective at giving support. So today we have Rena Gorlam. She's been a Washingtonian for over years. Yay, DC. And
40 years.
She's a writer and editor, and she's been a client of Element since 2012. So we deeply appreciate not only her support of Elements, but also her time, her willingness, and her courage to be here today. So thank you, Rena, for joining us.
You're welcome, and I thank you for your support from before I had breast cancer, and that's Pilates is the breast cancer is actually what brought me to Pilates, and so I would not be in the shape I'm in now without your help.
Well, thank you. All right, so we're going to delve right in. So the first question I have for you is, so how did you get diagnosed initially? Did you have a suspicion? Was it a routine mammogram?
No, nothing about my case was routine. I used to have very large breasts, and I'd always thought about getting a breast reduction. And one summer, there were several 100-degree days, and I decided that's it. Finally, I'm going to do it. So I had breast reduction surgery. Before that, you are required to have a mammogram, but having very dense breasts, a mammogram doesn't always reveal small tumors. I had the breast reduction, which was very successful, and I looked fantastic. Because there was no suspicion beforehand that anything might be wrong, the tissue was not sent urgently to pathology. So it wasn't until I had my third follow-up exam with my plastic surgeon that they came into the room with a very grim face, and it turned out that the pathology report found a tumor in the tissue that had been removed. It was in a jar. So it was very unusual, different from what most women experience. What made it even crazier was because it was in a jar, they didn't know where exactly the tumor had been in the breast. So unlike a lumpectomy where they try to cut out the tumor itself and margins around it, there was no way of knowing. So I was faced with some limited options that other women in their diagnosis might have had.
So what was your initial diagnosis?
Well, my initial, it was a very small tumor and very slow growing. So I was extremely fortunate in that regard. It gave me time to really think about what to do next and how to go about my what my options were. I had time to really explore my options. I had a sonogram of both breasts, which were now much smaller, but looking good. So there's definitely an element of disappointment that I had this surgery and was going to have another one somehow. I had the genetic test to see whether I had the gene for breast cancer. My mother and her sister had both had breast cancer, so there was definitely a suspicion that it was genetic, but it turned out I did not have that genetic abnormality. I was very angry, definitely feelings of disappointment, anger, confusion, but I definitely was determined to keep my head about me and really just look to my look to all the different medical professionals who could help me for answers. And I asked a lot of questions, and really wanted to know the side effects of every treatment option, the realistic experience. I didn't want anybody to sugarcoat anything. I was very reluctant to have any kind of option that would put me in more pain, that would prolong healing, that would limit my movement, anything that would have long-term repercussions. I felt that the surgery, I'd already had surgery, so I felt like I was having 2 surgeries in a row. I didn't want anything that would prolong the healing process.
So, context, though, like what year was this and how long?
I had the breast reduction at the end of 2011, and then I got the diagnosis in January 2012. I again, because the tumor was slow growing, non-aggressive, and very small, I was able to wait and have my mastectomy in February of 2012. The mastectomy was not actually what people were encouraging me to do. I could have had chemo and radiation on both breasts, again, because they didn't know where the tumor was. It turned out that I had some precancerous cells in both breasts. So I knew right away that both breasts would be affected. It was assumed by many doctors that I talked to that I would have reconstruction. I wanted to remain flat. I felt, I had these gigantic breasts for so long, and now they were half the size, just take the rest off. I was ready for that, and I really had wanted to be smooth and flat. I expected to wake up looking like a teenage boy. And while the doctor I went to who performed the surgery was great and very kind, I think there was an element of paternalistic behavior, because he never stopped asking me over and over and over, aren't you having reconstruction? Aren't you having reconstruction? All of the different kinds of reconstruction out there, whether it's implants that are saline or silicone, and all the different additional surgeries you can have where they transfer tissue from one part of your body to another, all involve very major surgery to other parts of your body that you would like to use again, and that are basically just going to be messed up. I didn't know enough about implants that I do now, but I did know I didn't want implants. And all of the other surgery options involve cutting up muscle and moving parts of your body around for no purpose other than a cosmetic result. Now, this is my personal feeling. I know a lot of women are very, they feel they need to have breasts to look right. I felt more that it was just going to be looks. Whether you have reconstruction or not, you're still not going to have feeling there. Your nipples are gone. You're not going to have the enjoyment, pleasure, anything of nipples. It just is going to look weird no matter what. So I would rather just go flat. So that's what I did. But when I woke up, I had all these crazy flaps and bumps and lumps and folds, and it was absolutely not what I expected. I ended up going back to the plastic surgeon who had done the reduction, and I spoke to his associate, who was a younger woman, and she kind of knew exactly what happened. It was kind of disillusioning to realize when she looked at me and knew exactly what happened, that she's seen this many, 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 many times before. People are encouraged to have reconstruction, And in the words of the breast surgeon, he said, "Oh, I left a little skin in case you changed your mind."
Mm, mm, mm.
Now, only a couple of years ago, I was informed by another friend of mine who also had breast cancer that there are groups on Facebook and websites of Flatties and the flat movement. And they are all about what is now termed aesthetic flat closure, AFC. And their goal, of which I am now, for which I am now an advocate, is to encourage the medical profession, all people involved with any women who have breast cancer, to offer being flat as an option. It is usually not offered. The person who wants it usually raises the issue themselves, has to request it. And as happened with me, even though I requested it, the result was not what I wanted and is not considered aesthetic flat closure, which is a term of art now used in the field to encourage doctors to abide by certain standards for a smooth, flat chest. And these terms, you can look this up online, aesthetic flat closure, and you will find all sorts of resources. One of the websites that is very helpful is called notputtingonashirt.org. And another one is flatclosurenow.org. On Facebook, I am with a few groups. One is called Flatties Unite. Another Facebook group. These are all private groups that you need to ask to join. Another one is called Fierce Flat Forward. And another group is the Flat Retreat Community, in which flatties organize retreats to just get together and offer mutual support, admiration, and just have some fun with people who know exactly what you're going through. So as far as Pilates goes, before I even had my mastectomy, I knew I was not in great shape. So I knew I had to get some abs going if I wanted to be able to get out of bed and use the bathroom and not use a bedpan. This was actually my precise motivation. I came upon another gym where many of your teachers were originally from. It was down the street. And that's where I was introduced to Pilates. And I'm like, this is a miracle. This is just what I want. So for 2 weeks, I did Pilates every single day until the day of my surgery. And the day of my surgery and recovery, I really was able to get out of bed and use the bathroom. So I decided, as soon as my doctor gave me the okay to continue exercising, I've stuck with Pilates ever since, and it's been great.
Yay. So you answered all my questions, but I do have one, which is fabulous. So you had mentioned waking up and kind of not getting what you asked for, or not in that disappointment. Are there, in addition to that, are there other moments that you kind of see in your flashbacks, or kind of drilled, those moments where, I don't know, your heart sunk, or your I mean, you're disappointed, you just got this surgery, breast reduction, and then you got this diagnosis?
Yes. It was like, what could happen next, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Were there any other kind of, you mentioned the frustration and the anger, and two questions. One is really, how did you deal with all those emotions? We've kind of heard different things about some people who just get the diagnosis and plow on through, and some people who are kind of present for the journey, and some people who, what did you do? What kind of support?
Well, I do have a support network of friends and a very supportive husband. I the day of my diagnosis, when the plastic surgeon gave me the bad news, he and his nurse actually were wonderful. They immediately gave me a referral to someone in the same hospital that very day just to talk. It was a breast surgeon at the hospital. I ended up not going with her as my surgeon, but that very day she gave me a long, she engaged me in a long discussion, although I was kind of not talking that much at that moment, and a lot of lists of resources. My initial response was, I'm fortunate enough to have all these resources, people who could take you to your chemo appointments, people who can bring you food. I was fortunate to have those things. So it really made me think about women who do not have those resources. But I guess what I would like to tell people is they're out there, and many hospitals and doctors will offer them, and many of them are free of charge. So I didn't need to take advantage of that, but they are out there, and women can take advantage of that. Personally, I was again very fortunate that once I decided to have the mastectomy, that would remove the need to have chemo or radiation. From what I now know of my friends in the Flatties group and other women who've had cancer, chemo and radiation knock you on your ass. So I don't know how much of a level head I would have been able to keep had I had to do that. The surgery's bad enough and it wipes you out. For months and months and months, I needed to take naps every day. Even though I was completely healed, it still is traumatic to your body. So it was mostly being tired and feeling itchy and all sorts of other weird things, but it's nothing compared to having chemo and radiation. So I was able to kind of keep my head about me and ask lots of questions and always insist on getting true answers about what the side effects of various hormonal treatments, whatnot. People offer you lots of things. Women should remember they're not required to do what someone tells them. Make up your own mind. As long as your treatment does not endanger public health, such as not getting vaccinated, what you do with your own breasts and your treatment is your decision. Don't let anyone bully you into getting some kind of reconstructive surgery. Don't let anyone convince you, oh, you must take, say, tamoxifen for 5 years or you're going to die. It's not quite that cut and dried. Ask questions, try to keep your head about you. If you don't think you can deal with this overwhelming amount of information, go with a friend, your spouse, a relative, anybody who you think could just sit there and take notes for you and ask the questions, or at least remember what was discussed. And that way, at least you will make an informed decision. Many of the Flatty women I've met had implants. They were not sure. They kind of were convinced to do it, or they somehow bought into the belief that you won't be a woman anymore. You won't be feminine anymore unless you have breasts. And many of these women got sicker from their implants, and they ended up having to have them removed. So there's a lot of barbaric kinds of expectations, I'll say, of women, that they must have breasts, that they must look a certain way. And that even happens to women who have cancer. It's like, why does this cosmetic thing on your chest take priority over healing from cancer? So I've really become a big advocate of knowing all your options, standing up for yourself, looking for support if you don't think you can stand up for yourself, having someone stand up with you and for you.
That is such important advice. And thank you. I mean, this is part of the reason I wanted you here, right? Because there are so many options and you have to pick your own journey, and,
Yes.
we just interviewed another woman who they wanted to take both breasts and she said, I want to have a child. I'm keeping one of them. And that's, that was her decision. And you
Right.
kind
I
of
mean,
have
it's possible that the breast she kept may become cancerous, but she decided she wanted to breastfeed. She could always take it off later.
yeah.
So I definitely understand that choice. I would also like to mention, I mentioned all the Flatty groups and websites, but I'd like to mention another website for another organization that I found very, very helpful, breastcanceraction.org. This organization does not take corporate money. It does not sponsor pink crap. It does not sponsor walks, all sorts of publicity, does not partner with other companies. They were the only breast cancer organization to be in on the lawsuit that removed the monopoly on the gene testing. There was only one company, laboratory, that was doing the gene testing for breast cancer. And this went all the way to the Supreme Court and they won. So now any company can do this gene testing. And because this organization, Breast Cancer Action, does not take corporate money, they were the only one on the lawsuit, and they have maintained this position. Anti-pink washing is how they put it. So they were the website I found where all of the different treatment options, they listed all of the side effects and all of the pros as well as the cons. So I found that extremely helpful. They're not a very big outfit, but I really also recommend that people look into that for information.
When we post this, we will include all the websites and Facebook links and everything that Rena's mentioning. So if you didn't catch it, don't worry. We'll
Okay,
make sure you have
I may have spoken a wrong dot or a wrong org somewhere, so I guess you'll find them all.
Yes, we'll make sure people have it. So, all right, let me see. So I do have one question. I mean, you've kind of answered this, but so
I
if you
prepared.
could tell yourself, yeah. So if you could tell yourself, you today, 2021, could tell yourself, you and the day you were diagnosed, something, what would you want yourself to know?
Well, the fact that my mother and her sister had had breast cancer, in the very, very back of my mind, I always knew it might have been a possibility. And my mother had had only one breast removed and then used a prosthetic. She did not have reconstruction. And seeing her struggle, because she also had large breasts, and it was extremely awkward just being dressed and whatever. I decided way back before I ever knew this would happen to me that if I ever needed a mastectomy, I would have both breasts removed. And I'm very glad I did. I find being flat actually very freeing. And I can wear clothes I really couldn't wear before. I think just people, healthy, not healthy, with breast cancer, any other kind of illness, whatever, just know your own body, learn what makes you comfortable, learn what makes you uncomfortable, because that helped me decide what treatments I did not want. And I mean, I think that would help you decide what to do about any medical condition, really. This is just a very prominent, in more ways than one, kind of cancer that people really notice when you get something removed. But I think having that mindset really helps with any medical condition. Just ask questions, try to keep your head about you, find people who will support you. And I feel very fortunate that I had those things.
Yay. And yeah,
And there's
again,
life after
life
after
after.
mastectomy.
Yes.
And we need to find a cure for metastatic breast cancer, which even if you have a mastectomy, you still could have cancer in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that is true. So let's hope so. It'll happen. It'll happen sooner, hopefully, than later.
Yes.
Yes.
And I
Any-
want to just do a little silly shout out to all the Flatty friends I have met just this year. And these are a really amazing bunch of women, very supportive of each other and for improving health options for all women. And men can get breast cancer too. So, you know, this is a large group of people, because 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer. So it's a kind of thing that we need to go beyond awareness into a movement to really improve people's lives. And I hope it extends to improving the healthcare system in America, which needs a lot of improvement.
Yes, it does. Yes. Well, thank you. This has been so inspiring. And yeah, so it's a reminder to get your mammograms. And
Yes.
you,
And
yeah,
if you have dense breasts, you may need to also get a sonogram. Talk to your doctors about that.
yeah, yeah. And then do your research, ask lots of questions, and make the choices that work best for your body. Body, mind, and spirit. Yes, indeed.
Yes. And go to Pilates.
And take Pilates or Chair Tonic or some kind of movement that works for you. So that's all I have for questions. I really
Thank you for inviting me to participate. And I'm thankful I was able to share a lot of this information I learned over the years with other women who may not be aware of it.
Yes, this will be extremely helpful for many women. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.